Happy New Year 2025 from Silver Lining. My name is Peter Abraham, a registered nurse primarily in the field of hospice, taking care of the terminally ill. This channel is looking at resilience in the face of storms, and the intent of this video is just a quick summary update. Before the end of the year, I did get to publish two new books, The Breath of Life and Understanding Breathing at End of Life, and also had 938 books sold before the end of the year. 2024 involved a lot of change, some of it planned and some of it, I don't know if you want to say the word unintentional planned. Storms in life that put us in a twist of a different direction to take. So, in the middle of January of last year, I was working with a local hospice agency in South Central Pennsylvania for a little over 2 years. Things were going well, but the hours were getting to be a little bit too much. Averaging 50 hours a week. Some weeks would be 70 hours, some weeks would be 40 hours, and they refused to honor my request to please go part-time. Too many deaths in my own family, and just not enough time to process all the dying among my patients and families. And I just needed to at least go down to 32 hours a week. And they refused, so I ended up resigning. Went to work with another local hospice agency, and that's where the storm came in, where at the beginning of the relationship was going well. The CEO was really happy with my work, sent me a very nice card saying how uplifting I was, how encouraging I was to the patients and families, how much they loved the education that they were receiving. I just love educating my fellow nurses, my patients, caregivers, and family members. And then things started to turn sideways in early to middle May when one of the family members of a glioblastoma patient asked me, what happened? This gentleman's in his 50s, very healthy, goes to the gym, rides bicycle, wouldn't even have known about the glioblastoma had he not been in a motorcycle accident. And I shared that Dr. Patrick Gilhole, one of the local doctors in South Central PA, very well reputable doctor, well known, very established doctor, shared what is a growing belief among thousands upon thousands of other doctors worldwide that certain injectable products, I can't name because of YouTube's restrictions, certain injectable products cause turbo cancers, and that we were seeing an influx of very rare cancers, especially glioblastoma, in the area, and that it's highly possible that this is how we got the cancer. And they admitted this person was very pro-injectable, up to date on all boosters and everything related. And ever since that, I was under the watchful eye of the agency. What was I sharing with family members? And instead of asking me directly, like using plain language, I mean, I have to watch what I'm saying on YouTube for certain areas, but like sitting me down and saying, Peter, what did you say and why? Peter, don't do that again, even though to me that's free speech. And they asked me directly. I could have shared that was the only case for their agency. There were other cases with previous agencies where if a family, a patient and or family or caregiver or nurse, if somebody asked me a direct question, I am not going to play politician and run them in circles. I'm not going to go like the politicians who go, let's circle back to that and never get back to it. I'm going to give them a direct, honest answer. And this was from a local, very established doctor. And I could have shared with them it was a one-time event based on a factual information that was told to an entire team of nurses and social workers, and I could have validated the event, and then they could have said, don't do it again. And then I could have tried to at least follow suit. But it ended anyway, long story short, in June, the 14th to be specifically, I was advocating for one of my lung cancer patients who was a retired registered nurse from hospice who asked to be knocked out. They weren't using the medical correct term, it's palliative sedation. And I was advocating for them to be palliative sedated. Uh, Here got screamed at by my clinical manager, asked to be called into the office later that day, and was let go. So my head was spinning. Was this ageism? You know, I'm 61, heading towards 62. Was it because of this event back in early to middle May of last year, 2024, or was it because I advocated too strongly for the patient because I got screamed at? We don't go in that direction, even though it's legal in all 50 states. I may never know that answer. I think it was because of the what I shared with the one family, but I may never know. And but the bottom line is that was a storm. Um, while that was a salary position, there were opportunities to earn bonuses when you worked on weekends, when you went out to do admissions and so forth. So I was on track to make around 90,000, give or take, a year, and that got all cut off. Thank God I was able to collect unemployment in Pennsylvania, not from that employer, but from my previous employer. And thankfully, even though the original thing was like you got terminated with cause, the cause that they gave is a patient family didn't like the education that I had provided, which seemed ironic since that's where I'm complimented the most by patients and families. But I advocated for myself, worked with an examiner who worked with me and said that even though, you know, Pennsylvania is an at-will state, you can fire for just looking the wrong way. It's an at-will state. Their reasoning wasn't sound, and so I was able to collect unemployment. And that ran out, by the way, just before Christmas of last year. But because of that storm and trusting in God, God opens up windows and doors, and not circling the drain of feeling sorry for myself, I started to write books. Now, I love writing books. Side note, this is an unedited video. I love writing books, and it's on my to-do list to write books. And if these were fiction books, I'd probably still be writing. But because these are books dealing with topics that I really love, enjoy, talked about in the past to patients and families, it's very easy for me to write books rather quickly. And because of my background in IT, nursing's a career change, I was able to come up with a system allowed me to publish books in anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks per book. And by the end of the year, I published 38 books. 13 books for hospice nurses, 11 books for hospice caregivers, 11 books dealing with dementia, and 3 books looking at holistic nursing overall. Now, in the thumbnail to this video, you saw the number 1 selling book, which is about documentation tips for hospice nurses, followed by a book that was would range between 5th and 6th in book sales, but went up to number 2 thanks to Dr. Andy on LinkedIn, a medical director for a hospice provider, who mentioned how well he enjoyed the book. That's Mastering Hospice Eligibility. And then I did publish 2 brand new books, one for hospice nurses dealing with breathing at end of life called The Breath of Life, and a similar topic for families and caregivers, understanding breathing at end of life. the main issue there, and I've dealt with, if you're a nurse or a med tech, a CNA, and you've been dealing with terminally ill or chronically ill patients, it's very common for the patient, the caregivers, family members, let me get the pulse ox, and they put the pulse ox on the finger, and they're freaking out. I'm being blunt, because the percentage is rather low, or they're raising their eyebrows or doing one of these. Gee, it's 98%, but you're saying you're short of breath. You're wrong. The numbers saying this. You're wrong. And I even had EMS last. I'm sorry, it was the 2023 week of Thanksgiving. I had a heart failure patient who was going into respiratory distress because of fluid buildup on his lungs, and they came after calling 911, and they were arguing at me. Well, the oxygen saturation is 98%, and then I'm like, you want to? Here's my stethoscope. Go listen. His lungs filling up with fluids. He's breathing 38 breaths a minute, and he's tripoding. He's doing the tripoding, and he's breathing. He's in respiratory distress. Don't go by the number. Take him to the hospital. Do your job. And yes, I tend to be blunt at times. And so a lot of times it's very common to look at the numbers and forget that hospice, as well as palliative care, is about the patient and what we observe. Are they comfortable? And throw the pulse ox away, or at least hide the bloody thing. Don't go by the pulse ox. There's a lot of reasons not to go on it at all. Side note, especially for COPD, I had a patient in 2024, late 2023 into 2024, where a local nursing home unintentionally but almost killed a patient because they put a COPD patient on 5 liters of oxygen, looking at the percentages versus what they were seeing. And thankfully, hospice was called in, and this was the case. Hospice is not about killing people, but I worked with the team to get them off oxygen completely, on room air, like I am now. I'm on room air, no nasal cannula, no mask. On room air, they came off hospice. External oxygen is not always needed. It can cause harm. Oxygen is a medication, and you could actually poison somebody with too much oxygen. But long story short, part of resilience is what doors are open for me. So I wrote books, and those books sold. Last month, December 2024, was the greatest month so far. 275 books sold, and I'm grateful. Now, the income from those books, Amazon takes out the printing fees, and they take a huge portion of the fees for themselves. But out of the royalty that comes 60 days after, so the royalties for December 2024, I won't see until the last day of February of 2025. But January, I'm going to phrase this. The December royalties that came in, the January that's coming, the February that's coming, is about the size of an average Social Security check. So I'm blessed. My prayer to God is could I at least make $500 a month in royalties, and I've been doing that and more each and every month. This isn't about the royalties, just sharing. It's an opportunity. And unlike the Social Security check, where you can pretty much count on your check, although there is going to be a cut for those getting Social Security, I think in the 2030s, they're talking about a 30% cut. But it's variable. I don't know what books will sell in January. Amazon, which I'm grateful that they give you this tool. They're not the greatest at communicating with. We turned such and like some of my dementia books got turned into low content books, which is frustrating because they all have lots of educational material. But they can make these changes, not notify the authors unless you go in to edit. What happened here and then there's no real telephone support. But that's its own story. But I'm blessed by God that He allowed this door to open. Uh, this door with this unexpected job transition was like, hey, we were looking at moving to Kentucky. It gave us the window because now I don't have to worry about scheduling time off. I just had to watch how I work it with unemployment, that I'm able to meet my commitments to the Pennsylvania, unemployment office. But we were able to go house hunting, and God provided us for getting a house in Kentucky, and I'm grateful for that. Um, got my Kentucky multi-state nursing license, and applied to a job in Kentucky. I'm still waiting to hear. It's the holidays. We'll see. And one day at a time. I'm looking at working part time because one of the things I want to learn about is gardening, which I've never done in my entire life. Vegetable gardening, to be specific. And we'll look at things on how it goes. My daughter got married last year. And so, Brittany and Mike, happy New Year. So, in other episodes, I do hope to go over, adopting special needs children who are now adults, but what that involved, including lots of storms and other storms that can happen to all of us, and what are ways that we can adjust our thinking to not go down and circle that drain. If you've not heard, it's now heading on the 3-year mark. Dementia is not dementia, oh my word, this is unedited. Depression is not caused by a chemical imbalance. Depression is not caused by a chemical imbalance. It is caused by having sad things happen and then focusing on those sad things. Woe is me. This is awful. I hate this happened. And just circling those thoughts over and over again until you become addicted to those thoughts. And there are ways to break those addictive thoughts. And I hope to go over those in future episodes. But if you like this content, subscribe, like, please feel free to comment. I've had either via text or Facebook Messenger or outright telephone calls with others, free. Can't say that there won't come a time where I might say, gee, I should be charging for my time, but for right now it's free. I like helping my fellow persons, fellow human beings. But ask questions, whether it be about publishing on Amazon, moving to another state, getting your license endorsed in another state, hospice questions, whatever's on your mind. If it's relevant, I'll do my best to answer. And even if it's irrelevant, we'll see. Thank you. God bless. And goodbye. And Happy New Year.